Hey y'all, we're back with a new video. Well, part two to the one that we already did. We talked about the different kinds of resins. We broke all of that down. Um, Now we're going to finish the second half of that beginner's video and update all the things that we talk about in the second half of this video, like different colorants, and things like that. So let's pick up where we left off from part one. If you missed that, go back and watch that one. There's a lot of good tips in there too, and a lot has changed since I made this beginner's video years ago. So let's jump in to part two of our updated beginner's guide and some new tips and tricks that we've learned since we made this years ago. All right, let's see what we're talking about here. Oh, hold on, time out.
Let's resin comes with
There we go.
their packs of mica,
Let's go back.
all
Here we go.
kind of ideas and things that you can use. I think first in most kits will come with some mica, or it will come with some colorant ink that you can put in your resin to make different colors in those starter kits that we talked about. I know Let's Resin comes with their packs of mica that I can't seem to locate at the moment, but it will come in a plastic bag like this, and it's got mica in it. So,
And y'all know what I'm talking about here. When you get a beginner's kit, it comes with like sample size Ziploc for a better lack of a better word, but it comes in a little plastic bag just like I'm holding there. And Less Resin has beautiful colors. Um, all of them have really beautiful colors. But before we get started, mica always migrates to the middle. And if you remember, and I'm going to put the chart up for you, I'll add the chart here so you'll get a refresher. Remember, I made the chart and we went from the left side, which is the heaviest pigments, all the way to the right side that goes to the lighter pigment weight. And what do I mean by weight? When you put it in your resin, okay, each colorant has its own weight. Like if you put a paste, if you just drop a drop into resin of paste, it sinks to the bottom immediately because it is a heavy pigment. That's why I have on this chart that it's like a brick. Because when you drop it in any kind of liquid or water, it sinks straight down real fast, right? And it's going to stay there. It's not going to migrate and move around and do all that. Then the other end of the spectrum with our lightest colorant is alcohol inks. And they are always floating to the top like a helium balloon, right? So when you use alcohol inks, it doesn't completely cover all of your resin. They float on the top. That's why we come back and we put a sinker white on top of it, which adds a little bit of paste to it to weigh and bring the color of the alcohol ink down into your piece. And that's what creates those little spore-like effects that you see in a pea tree. So I don't want to get way ahead of myself, but here is the chart. Again, I have this in our Facebook group. I use it on a lot of videos. So if you need to pause the video, take a picture of it. There it is. If you're a member of the Facebook group, it's posted everywhere in there. Or just shoot me a message and I'll send it to you in Messenger or email or whatever. All right, so let's continue and see what I say from here. I might have jumped ahead of myself, but that's all right.
we use mica and resin to give us colors, right? And it doesn't take very much. Um, and I will tell you, excuse me, there's a big difference in quality of resins. I've ordered some cheap mica off of Amazon, and when I poured it,
And y'all, that was quality of mica. There is a difference between quality of resin too, but there's also different qualities of the mica powder.
I was floored because it was nowhere near the color that I thought it was going to be. Um, so be careful when you order. Cheaper is not always better. If you're just starting out and you're practicing and stuff like that, great. Use it so you learn how to stir and make sure all the mica is dissolved and there's no clumps. and that it's all thoroughly mixed in. Um, that's a good way to do that. Now, if you're selling your pieces,
Let me talk about that real quick too. If you have, I'm sure you've seen the glow in the dark powders and the neon mica powders. There's a difference in the quality because of the chemicals and things needed for that fluorescent in the neon and the glow in the dark. Um, for the glow in darks, that mica is much harder to break down in resin than a regular mica like what we have over here. Here is your first tip and trick for this video. If you have those glow in the dark or the neon, or you have a mica that's not very easily broken down in resin, the trick is take your cup, just put a few drops of your 99% alcohol or anything over 91%. Put a few drops of your alcohol in a cup, add your mica only to the alcohol, and it's going to break that down so easy. And you let it sit, let the alcohol evaporate off, and then you just pour this mixture that has now completely broken down your mica into your resin, and it combines so much easier. You don't have clumps, and I know y'all seen it in the glow in the dark. I've had it happen to me. I use glow in the dark, and there are these specks in there once it's cured, and I'm like, what is that? It's actually mica that did not break down. So, number one tip for this one, use just a tiny bit, a few little drops to break down any of those hard micas and make sure it's all the lumps are gone, everything's dissolved and combined. Give this alcohol mixture time to evaporate off, and then pour this into your resin, and you're going to see a whole lot difference. You won't have those specks in your projects afterwards. So that's tip number one. Let's keep going.
I would move up to a higher quality mica that's going to hold its color better. That's going to be a truer color to what you're looking for, make it easier for you to work on, and it looks more professional. Um, Now, so we know we have micas. We have micas in all different colors, um, all different effects. There's interference micas that if you put a little of the interference powders in a black resin, man, it is gorgeous. Looks like a galaxy. You can put it in regular resin too, which I think I did on this. I put a pink or violet interference in this white. So I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but that's an interference.
Y'all, and let's talk about the interference real quick too. That's another one you can break down in alcohol if you need to. It depends on the brand. I've had them where they didn't break down very easily, and I've had them that broke down super easy. So it just depends on what you're using. But interference powders, just using them by themselves is great. You can also use them in white and get an opal effect. Because when you turn, if you put white, let's put white resin in your cup, and then you add in some of the violet and the blue, whatever you want, green, and you mix that together, like, or even mix your interference separate. That's probably a better way to do it. Mix each color separate. So violet, green, blue, and you have your solid white, right? So you pour your white, a little bit of white, a little bit of the blue, a little green, a little of the violet, and once you pour it like that, you're going to get an opal effect. It's so beautiful. I love it. So there's a little trick for you. If you want to go for an opalescent effect, you can use these interference by themselves, or you can use them with a solid white and try to get that little hint of fire that we love so much from opal. I love opal. It's beautiful. And you can do it with a darker color too. You can do it with black. You can do it with blue and do the same thing. Drizzle. I take my stick and I just drizzle on, and then I'll take some of the blue and drizzle that, some of the green, drizzle that, some of the violet, drizzle that, and just let resin do its thing with it all. And you're going to get that little spark and hint of color like we see in that opal coming out of the ground. So there's a little trick for you guys to try. Experiment with it. See if you like it, if you don't like it. It's fun.
Interference. Um, Gorgeous colors, but it really pops with a black background. So you have interference powders. You have chameleon powders, which shift and change, and that's what this. You see how it changes when I move it around? It's different colors it shifts to. That's a chameleon. So you can get that powder.
Let's talk about chameleon real quick. Chameleon powders, if you notice them, they come in a small jar, right? They're super small container. And that is because if it comes in a small container, that is a hint that you're supposed to brush it on your mold. Because when we get bigger amounts of mica, mix it in your resin, right? But if it comes in a real small container, you're going to get your best bang by brushing it on the mold because the amount that it will take to put in your resin to achieve the effect you're looking for takes a lot more, you know, than what you want to use from this tiny jar. It stretches and goes a much longer way if you just brush it on your mold. And I will tell you, the difference between brushing your mold with it and putting it in mica and pouring it, it's two different effects. It's not the same effect as if you brushed it on the mold, poured a black background. And here, let me show you. See the difference in these? That's a black background, and you see how it really pops. There's a white background, and it pastels your mica colors out. And then there's just a clear behind it. So you see the different effects you get depending on the background color that you use. So that's another little tip for you. Let's continue on and see if I'm jumping ahead of myself. Very likely.
Les Resin has a bunch of them, and they're gorgeous, gorgeous fun colors.
Oh, okay, how small that is. Now,
gorgeous fun colors.
there you go. You see how small that jar is, right? As compared to our other mica jars. You can put this in your resin, but this is gonna last you much longer if you brush it on your mold, and you're gonna get that beautiful effect that you want anyway. So, had to point that out. Sorry. Let's keep going.
I use them a lot. They're like one of my faves. And then you have the interference powders, which we talked about.
Heads up, Les Resin stop making that interference powder on its own. But if you get their 60 set mica powder that they have, they're in there. So you can still get them through that. But interference powders are also called opal powders. I've seen them called ghost powders. There's all kind of different names. It all means the same thing. It's just a hint of that color. It's an underlying tone when you add it to something else. It interferes. That's what that interference means. You just see a hint of the underlying tone that you put in. All right, let's keep going.
You have alcohol inks, which, let's talk about the difference in inks for a second. You have an alcohol ink and you have like a regular opaque or transparent ink. Alcohol inks float to the top. Think of alcohol evaporating and rising. Alcohol ink floats to the top. So if you want a piece that you're making, well, let's say, all right, let's use this mold as an example. If you have a piece and you want this part to be the front of your design, you want to see it from the bottom, alcohol ink, unless you use a sinker for the Petri effect, that a lot of people I know have a lot of questions and ask about, a Petri effect with alcohol ink, great. If you're just coloring resin, that's really going to float to the top. You're going to see it more here than you will here because alcohol inks float. So that's one difference. Transparent ink means you're going to be able to see straight through it. If you put it up to a light, I'll be able to see my fingers and my hand behind a transparent ink. So that's see-through. That's what you see a lot of people use to make oceans with. So you can see the floor of the ocean. And then an opaque color means you can't see through it.
And the opaque is also the same as a dye. And this is a great way to break that down. I'm glad I pointed that out because there are differences in the drops we see in these bottles. And a lot of people come to me and ask me, what is this? I'm confused. I don't understand what this means or what I need to use. So let's talk about these bottled inks. You're going to have some, and go back to that chart again. And on the left side between the heavy pigment paste and the middle, which is the mica powders, to the left of that, between those two, is the dyes, D-Y-E-S, dyes, the opaque drops. That's the same thing. These on this side of mica toward the heavier paste are going to completely color your resin. And they're going to make it when you, remember I said you stir your resin and you lift your stick up? When you use one of these solid dyes or opaque dyes, or drops, you're not going to be able to see your stick through it. It's not going to be transparent. It's going to be a solid color. Okay? So that's the difference between that and a transparent ink or a tint. Now you have mica in the middle, right? And then between mica and alcohol inks, you have transparent ink and tint. Transparent inks and tints, I don't care how much you use, they are always, always, always going to remain transparent or see-through. That's why a lot of people choose them for their ocean pieces, because it looks like water, right? And you can use darker for deep end water that has a farther distance to the base or the floor of the ocean. That's why it's darker, because there's more space there. And then the closer you get to shore or it gets shallower, the lighter your color is going to be. So that's how people do their oceans. Deep water, they use a darker blue, but still transparent. You can still see your floor, right? Not very much. And then as you become shallower, it becomes lighter and more transparent. So that's the difference between a solid dye, an opaque drop or dye. If you see DYE, remember I'm doing tie-dye, right? You dropped colors and you stirred them up and you had a solid color, right? You didn't use a tint or a transparent to give a hint of the color that showed something through it. You had a solid color, okay? So that's the difference there. And of course, alcohol inks is the helium balloon that we're talking about. All right, let's go.
When you hold this up, you would not be able to know what's behind this heart at all because it's opaque, not being able to see through it. So there's differences in inks. So be sure when you're looking that if you want a transparent, make sure it says it's transparent. Because if you're looking for a transparent effect and you get an opaque ink, you're not going to be able to see through it. You're going to be just.
Yes, when you're shopping, make sure you're looking and reading the description, because you want to make sure if you're looking to buy transparent inks to use for like a stained glass effect, for oceans, whatever you want to use that for, make sure in the description it says transparent ink. It may say it on the bottle. If you're looking for a solid color or a dye, it's going to say opaque drops or resin dyes, DYES. So double check your description and your labels. Okay, very important, because a lot of people get these confused and they get frustrated because they don't understand why they're not getting the effect that they want, but they're just using the wrong colorant to get there. All right, what do we have next?
Your customer's going to be disappointed. So try to look at those in the description.
Let's pause here real quick. This is a brand new technique that I did. I had not seen anyone do this before. I had seen them use it in resin, but I never saw it directly on. And these are acrylic cutouts here. This is not a mold. It's not a wood piece. It's a cutout acrylic done on a CNC machine in different shapes. This one's a dolphin. This one, one of my customers were looking for Bigfoot for her husband. It was a joke. But I didn't realize how popular Bigfoot is, actually. Anyway, so I had my girl cut these out. Her husband cut them out on their CNC machine. So I had them for a customer, special order. But this effect, I use my alcohol as the base. I put drops of alcohol down, then I added some colorant and used, lack of a better description, a nose bulb syringe. That's what it is. A bulb syringe that we use with our babies to clean their nose out. If you're old school like me, you know what that means. You clean out their nose with these little bulb syringe, but you can also use them to blow and move your colors around. And again, remember we're talking about alcohol inks. They move easy with just a little gentle breeze. They move around a lot, right? You can't use a bulb syringe as air to move pigment paste because it's too heavy. So that's what I did here. I used alcohol as the base and not resin to put my alcohol drops in. I used the alcohol base, put my colored alcohol drops on top of it, use the syringe or a bulb syringe to blow it around and create different patterns until I was satisfied with it. and then I'll let the alcohol inks and the alcohol base dry completely. And then we added a protective, um, oh my gosh, y'all, my brain is dying today. I use an acrylic spray to lock in my colorants. It's a UV protectant. And I'll show you. It looks like this. I'll put it in here for you. So it looks like that. It's just a Pro UV protectant spray to lock my colors in. I did a couple coats of that, super thin coats, because that's what I love about Let's Resin's alcohol inks. They're very vibrant, and they stay very vibrant. So, um, and then once all that dried completely, I add a layer of resin on top to really make it pop and come to life. So that's a quick how-to. I do have a video on this technique by itself on how to do this. Just look on my channel under new resin technique. I'll link that at the end of this video. So if you're interested to learn how to do that and create these beautiful abstract pieces without having to use a lot of resin, it's a great way to do it. I'll link the video at the end. So look up here in the corner. There'll be a link at the end of the video. Just click that. It'll take you right to it. But I love this. Perfect. I probably went way ahead of myself. I won't be surprised if I do. Anyway, let's see. Did I jump way far ahead?
Pure alcohol and alcohol inks on an acrylic cutout. So there's no alcohol, there's no resin involved at all in this part of it.
And you can see that. It's like a matte finish. And I do use a matte spray. Here is your pro tip number 2 for this video. If you are using a spray to seal or lock in your colorant, right? And if you are going to put resin as a top coat over your art, and that can be acrylic painting, whatever. If you're going to do that, make sure you use a matte finish for your spray. And I'll tell you why. Because if you use a glossy or really a gloss finish on your piece that you're locking your colors in, then you're pouring a glossy resin that's shiny too. The two glosses compete against each other. So to have a more professional, crisp shine to your piece, use matte spray to lock your colors all in. And then when you pour your resin, it's not competing against another gloss or another shiny. It's just highlighting and bringing to life, crisping these colors. So that is your pro tip number 2. If you're using a sealant to lock colors in and you're going to use resin on top of it, use a matte finish spray. There you go. All right, on we go. Probably jumping ahead of myself on that too, but let's see.
Now what I do is I take it from this form and I add a top layer to really make the colors pop on these. The metallic that I use is also a metallic alcohol ink, and I put them in these little needle point.
Okay, that's also a great tip that I forgot to mention. And I go over it all when I talk about it in this video. I do use the metallic alcohol inks because I want this to float to the top. I don't want it to get lost anywhere. So if you use a metallic alcohol ink, it's going to float to the top just like your alcohol inks. And it's going to give these little breaks and veining and highlights that really make your piece stand out from others. So that's a great thing. And this needle nose bottle is a lifesaver because and y'all know this, if you use any dropper bottle like this and you've had to cut the tip off or puncture it with a needle, it's not real consistent how it comes out, right? Some bottles will come out real fast, others will take forever to come out. If you put them in a needle nose bottle like this, you have far more control over how much color and where that color lands coming out of this bottle. Now here's another pro tip. Add a BB inside of this when you add your alcohol inks and you add your other alcohol on top of it. When you put it in here, put a BB. That BB, when you shake it, is going to remove all of the colorant that's settled on the bottom or on the sides of your bottle. So when you pour your piece, it's not just an alcohol drop, but it has that equally distributed metallic as well. So that's another big pro tip. Just get a little ball bearing, put one in there, And when you shake it up, make sure you shake real good to get all of the metallic that might have separated, where you have alcohol at the top and your metallic colorant is at the bottom. You want to make sure that it's all combined and mixed. So there's your pro tip number 2. Ball bearings, or BBs as they're called, really help keep your colorant mixed well.
So it's easier for me to, put it where I want it to be. And then the alcohol evaporates, it's dried, and I spray sealant to lock it in, all the colors. I put a UV protection with a matte sealant on these. They are now. And then I pour a layer of resin over the top to lock it in. And I have a customer who's a huge Bigfoot fan. So these I made for her. Gotta get those in the mail. So that is, additives. You can use chunky glitter. You can use fine glitter. Let's talk about glitter for just a minute, okay? Chunky glitter is heavy. It's a heavy glitter because it's bigger, right? It's bigger chunks, so it's gonna sink. If you were to pour resin that had this glitter in it, it's gonna sink to the bottom and you're gonna see all chunky glitter, nothing else. If you intended to add anything else in here, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Another tip. Excuse me. We are going to talk about this glitter and chunky glitter and all that and how to keep it. And I think that's where we're going.
Because this chunky glitter is going to sink to the bottom. Now, there is a trick that Daniel Cooper showed us and learned.
Thanks, Daniel.
To make this glitter float so it doesn't sink. And it's simply adding just a tiny tip of clear glue. And I don't think I have it here. I think it's over my other work area. But clear Elmer's glue. That's all it is. When you squeeze, and I wouldn't open it full blast, just open it a little of the way and squeeze until there's a little tiny bit on the tip. Take that with your silicone applicator, whatever you want, and put that in your resin that has your chunky glitter in it.
Here you go, guys. It is 1 drop of clear PBA glue, so your clear school glue. 1 drop for every 3 ounces of resin. So that's a good ratio to lock in and remember. 1 drop of clear glue per every 3 ounces of resin. So let's say you're mixing 6 ounces of resin. You want 2 drops of clear glue. There you go.
You mix it up. It's going to mix like slime. Trust me. It's going to look like slime. But when you pour it into your mold, it cures with the glitter floating. It doesn't sink to the bottom.
Keeps it all.
That is another trick for you guys. Thanks to Daniel. He does amazing experiments.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to break this into 3 parts. Holy cow. Can you believe that? We are at 35 minutes and not even all the way through. Not even close. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop at, we're going to end this one on the colorants, and then we'll talk about alternatives. Okay.
Including a way to make your projects look like etched glass, just using lotion. But we'll talk about that in a different video. So there's a trick for you. If you don't want your heavy glitter to sink flat to the bottom of your mold and take up all that space in design, then don't worry about it being like slime and let it cure. You'll be me.
Let's go to the next one.
Now, we talked about the holographic glitter. That was something that I was shocked because I wanted to experiment and see, can I use a little bit of mica? Can I use a little bit of this with UV resin? Will it be okay? And what I found, mica, I would say no, absolutely.
All right, we talked about all this when we talked about in part 1 with the UV resin. I went over all of that. I gave y'all some huge changes to that category. Remember, back even really last year, at the beginning of the year, we didn't have all of these pre-colored UV resins to choose from that are formulated to cure, even though they look solid. So we went over all of that in part 1. If you want to know more about that, go click part 1, watch that. We really talk about all the different resins. I break down the UV stuff, give you some tips for that too. So we're going to skip all of that.
Paste is...
Talking about paste now.
See if I can do this without getting it everywhere. I don't have any gloves on. All right, so let's don't open that paste because I'll get it everywhere. Here's a paste. There is a paste. You can see the
Look at that.
paste. This melts in resin like butter.
Yes, it
It is
does.
unbelievable. And to be honest, when I use paste, I have very few bubbles at all. Paste is amazing. Um, Make sure when you open it, you stir it and combine it all. And it takes very, very little.
Let's talk about that real quick. When I said when I use paste, I don't have as many bubble issues. And that's because paste is a heavy colorant. So it breaks the tension of any bubbles because of the weight. So that's a good thing. If you're having an issue with bubbles, a lot of bubbles, try switching to just use paste and see if you can tell a difference doing that. But yes, every time you open your paste jar, make sure you stir all of it together because, like the alcohol ink we talked about with the BB, to shake it and get all of the color off the sides and the bottom to make sure it's completely combined. Same thing here. There are additives in these. Each brand has its own formula and own recipe for making their paste. So make sure you stir it up so there's no separation from any additives or anything they add because some pastes have an additive that will allow your piece to look like lacing or start selling up when you add heat to it. You see that a lot in our ocean scenes where we want that selling to make the waves look like a foamy wave. But like this, Color Passion is one. They add additives to almost all of their paste. So make sure you stir it really good. And if you see this little lip here, I left, when you open it, you got to peel this sealed part off the jar. I like to leave about half to a third of that sealed silver piece there so I can wipe my stick off on it instead of wiping it on the side of the jar because if you wipe it on the side of the jar, you run the risk of your lid getting stuck and you have a hard time opening your jar. So if you leave part of that sealed piece, you can wipe your stick on the sealed piece and avoid issues of it being stuck shut.
Amount to color your resin. So I would stir it, and for using this, I would stir it, wipe off the stick, and just whatever is on here, I promise you're gonna be shocked at how quickly it colors your resin. Doesn't take much at all. Now this is Color Passion. Color Passion also has
All right.
that will give you when you add heat cells theme,
Yeah.
and you've seen the waves because they're using a paste.
I
When you
just,
add heat to it, it active ones. They add a lot of heat to it. Alcohol, after you put your resin and stuff down, can also cause your resin to sell like that. So there's some tricks.
yeah, here's another pro tip or a trick for you. If you want to create selling on your piece and your colorant doesn't have that additive in it, you can create it by yourself simply using your alcohol that you use to spritz your project with. Just sprinkle a little alcohol or spritz a little bit of that alcohol over your resin that you poured, and you're going to see it's going to start selling up, creating these little cells. It's really cool. So experiment with that. Test it out and see if you like the effect or not. Some people love it, some people don't like it. So just experiment and see what you like.
Tips for that as well.
Yeah, because
We'll
I don't
go
want to
over
make this
that
long.
in
I
a
told
different
y'all.
video because I'm going to work on doing an ocean. The trick with the I talked about the foils that I used here to make this, and I put a lot of foil in here. You
Gold
don't have to.
plate.
You can put just a little bit of foil, and it has an amazing effect too. Um, Beautiful, beautiful. I used. You can see that I used the iridescent cellophane in this
Yeah.
one to give the.
Okay, this is going to be the last thing we cover in this one. The iridescent cellophane, that's another trick. So here's another one for you guys. Um, you know the big wraps, the cellophane we use to wrap a basket, a gift basket, either at Easter time, or if you're making a teacher gift, or Mother's Day, or any kind of gift that you're loading goodies into a basket, and you use that cellophane to wrap and hold everything all together, right? That is the same cellophane. I chose iridescent cellophane. And it's just those big papers. You can get it on a roll. They come in a pack where it's just sheets of them. I had the sheets and I just cut a piece out and I cut it in little tiny pieces. You can buy it already shredded, but I just buy the big pieces and I cut it up myself. Or I leave it whole, whatever I'm working on and what effect I'm trying to achieve. So getting the iridescent cellophane either in a roll or simply the bigger sheets, that's a huge tip because it can really elevate and change the effect of a piece and really give it that extra elegance or the extra pop that'll make you stand out from other people maybe at a show or a fair. So that's your last trick. I'm leaving it here. We're going to have to do a part three. I did not realize how much stuff I covered in that video. I knew it was long, and I really didn't like that. I wasn't aiming for it, but there was so much to go over, as you could see. So today we went over the colorants of resin. Again, recap. Here's my chart. Please take a picture of it, save it, get with me, I'll send it to you so you can post it. It is very helpful to remember the weights and how these colorants interact in resin because that's very dependent on the effects that we're looking to achieve, what colorants we use. So, y'all, that's all for this review. I hope you learned something and one of these tips or tricks saves you some frustration and gives you an easier path to achieve the beautiful effect that you want to. And remember, just click this video over here. It's going to take you to that new technique where I only used alcohol itself that we spritz to clear bubbles and alcohol inks to create beautiful abstract pieces that will take your breath away. You won't believe how easy it is to achieve it. So click the video up here in the corner if you want to see that. I appreciate you guys being here. If there's a video that you have seen that you really want to know how they did that technique or obtained that effect, leave me a comment and tell me who did the video, what is the name of the video. I'll look it up, and maybe that's a video that we review together, and I'll break it down for you. But that's all I have for this one, y'all. Please make sure you go subscribe to the channel. We want to grow this one. We're using this as a review and a breakdown of not only my videos, but other artists' videos too, to help beginners learn how they can achieve those effects step by step in a way that is more easily understood when we break it down as compared to just watching someone do their art. But that's all I have for this one, y'all. Do all the YouTubey things, give this a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, happy arting. Ta-ta for now.